Inside the Birds is back. What's up, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan here for a midweek Inside the Birds. It doesn't feel like it was very long since our last podcast, our post-game show with Clay Harbor, where we talked about an Eagles 20-17 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. And Adam, it's time. The sky is officially falling. If you're on any social media platforms right now, it's a bad time to be. It's a bad place to be for Eagles fans.
I mean, look, I did Mike Gill's show Tuesday, and I don't want to say went off, but I was like, this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
This is I just I kind of outlined some of my feelings after the game with you and Clay on our post game show, and then just going into that game. I mean, look, when they find out that they had to prepare for both quarterbacks, you can't let Drew Lock beat you. We're going to get into that and some of the stuff that we learned and more information, but that's just embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. It's not. They played a much inferior team,
Yep.
and the lines makers thought so because they Eagles moved from 3 to a 5 point favorite, 5.5 depends which book right before the game started. Once it was known that Locke was going to start, and the fact that they couldn't beat him, and it's hard to understand. Like I could understand the other teams. So moving this forward, you talk about the sky is falling. I get the anger. It's well founded by the fans who are pissed off.
Yeah.
Uh, and we'll talk more about that in today's show. And obviously, playing Cosell well and Q&A. Can't wait to hear. I that's going to be a fun one. When I usually listen to those guys on Thursday. That's going to be fun because I can imagine being if I'm a former player, I would be going off. I would be going off.
Yeah, you might have to adjust your schedule and get them a little earlier than Thursday. They'll be out today, Tuesday. Usually they come out. I'm sorry, today Wednesday. Usually they come out Tuesday, but they're gonna be out obviously today, probably in the afternoon. So make sure you look for Q&A. They're gonna have a lot to say on that game, and of course, Greg Cosell and Clay Harbor have already been talking about how they're going to be breaking down some of the implosions that took place on the Eagles side versus the Seattle Seahawks, and that show will come out tomorrow, Thursday morning, 6 a.m. And it'll be a good one, I'm sure. And then right back into it, man. Giants Eagles pregame podcast Friday, and then pregame show will be Monday, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock on Christmas. That's right. We're working on Christmas Day. Myself, Adam, Jason Avant, Greg Cosell. Pregame show starting at 1 o'clock from 1 to 3 p.m. And then, of course, the Eagles will play the Giants on Christmas. And then we'll be wrapping it up post game, myself, Adam, and Clay Harbor. So, pretty busy week here. And I believe we're working hard to get another gun on one this week as well with Derek Gunn. So, it keeps going.
Well, yeah, look, there's the 3 weeks now left. It's all still there for the Eagles to win the division. Still could very well do. In fact, I don't say I would be surprised, but man, it's pretty favorable based on the schedule they have in Dallas. But based on the Eagles losing to Seattle, you can't count on anything at this point. That's where they're at this season. That as we move forward here, that's kind of where they're at. You just don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah, you really don't. And I know a lot of people have a lot of questions, Adam. So for our Patreon members, you will be doing your weekly chat tonight on Discord, 8 o'clock p.m. And then by next week, we'll have another Ask ITB live stream. And I can't imagine what that one's going to be like if the Eagles somehow lose to the Giants, because oh boy, if it's bad now, I can't imagine what it'll be like then. So let's see what happens with that game. For our Patreon members, we are expecting to have a former personnel executive on with us soon. We should have that announcement by Friday's show. And as usual, as always, we will get our Flips script segment with former Eagles quarterbacks coach John DeFilippo. And that should be an interesting one as well later this week.
And by the way, it's not just tape. Yes, he goes over the tape, but it's so much more. We hit on like 10 different issues. Game planning, run pass ratio. We went through everything. So we want people to be smarter. It's so far beyond tape study. That was our goal. We got John because we want to go through the mind of a coach. How do you prepare? What happens when this happens? What about mechanics with this quarterback? Going against certain defenses, schemes. We talk about Fangio defense. How you prepare for that? Cover 3 beaters, cover 5 beaters, cover 6 beaters, depending on the opponent. I mean, this has been an unbelievable education. And you could go back really when we first started doing the shows with John after the week 1 game against New England. It's been far, we love the comments. It's been far greater than we expected. We did, it's the first time we've done this. And John's been gracious enough with his time. We're not going to have him forever because he's I'm sure he'll be coaching the USFL or something like that. He was last season. You remember they combined with the XFL, so as long as we could have him, we're gonna use him. So we're gonna do that, and we look forward to talking to him later this week.
Yep. We want to give a shout out to Judy. Big thanks to Judy, our most recent member on Patreon. She got on by going to patreon.com/inside the birds. And you can too. Patreon.com/inside the birds. Just some quick injury updates in a second. First, as we always tell you, Inside the Birds is presented by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. And let's hear from Ocean Casino Resort right now.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
All right, Adam, the injury situation, it's been bleaker coming out of games before. And of course, we obviously have to wait, as we always say, for the midweek injury report to come and see if there are any of those quote unquote pop-up injuries that have hurt the team in the past. But we saw Lane Johnson. Man, that was scary because of his injury history recently and the way he grabbed at that ankle leg area. Thankfully, he came back in. I think it was just one snap later. You have to take the requisite one snap off. So that was a little nerve-wracking. And then obviously Grant Calcaterra, who's been I think he was battling an ankle injury most recently when he was on the injury report. He left and had to be checked out. They announced a leg injury, but came back. But those were really the only two in-game injuries that we saw, but both players obviously returned. So that was good.
Yeah, so tomorrow is the first injury report because again, they play on Monday afternoon, so they don't have to. Their first injury report would be Thursday, then it's Friday and Saturday. Walk through Sunday, then the game. So we'll see. I mean, it looked okay, boy, their injury report, but man, when Lane went down, obviously when you saw it, I go, oh man, that's really bad. And then when I saw the replay, I'm like, okay, maybe it's not that bad. It didn't look like a high ankle sprain. And the fact that he was able to come back was remarkable. And yeah, and by the way, Calcaterra only played on on special teams, and that'll play into their scheme. We'll get into that in a second, or their plan about personnel usage, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Now, we're still waiting to hear about some guys who are injured, but not on injured reserve. We're talking about Cam Jurgens. He missed last game with a pectoral injury. Now, this upper body injury, Adam, is sort of different for Cam Jurgens. We knew he had didn't he have an ankle or a foot? He had a foot sprain, right? That landed him on IR. And we had some good intel on that said that going back to college, he had, I think, two foot injuries or foot and ankle area injuries in college. But this is new for him, the pectoral injury. So you'll have to see the pecs and quads we often talk about as one of those tricky injuries where you're just not sure. You can't come back too soon. You don't want to aggravate them. And it's always tricky with the timetable.
Right. Zach Cunningham, he's now missed 2 out of his last 3 games, one with a hamstring, one with a knee. And we'll see if he could return to practice. And then obviously Darius Slay is going to be out a bit with the arthroscopic knee surgery, expected to return for the playoffs at the latest, barring some kind of a setback. And as we've been talking about for 4 weeks, you kept hearing that Maddox will be back for the playoffs. Well, he could be back practicing very soon, as soon as this week. We'll see. And then obviously, if he does, they put the timetable on it. And that's good news there because that certainly would impact the way they play coverage.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a big help of getting him back. With him, though, you can never count on him because of his injury history, which is massive. Been a good player, but he's had a lot of bad luck with injuries.
Yeah, I can't. Who would have thought like back in August we would be saying in December a guy like Zach Cunningham, man, they got to get him back on the field. They really miss. I don't even know if we thought he would like hold up until this time or be as good of or not to make him out to be Fred Warner, but to be as significant in this Eagles defense as he's been this year. And Shaq Leonard obviously filled his spot, but the all 22 has not yet been. It might be up finally today, but I haven't been able to check it out yet. But it's not like you heard Shaq Leonard's name and making a whole lot of plays either.
Yeah, we'll as we did last year when we do the tape breakdown, the tape breakdowns that we got were from other people, so
Right.
we'd watch it a little bit, but mostly we would get it, we would make it clear we got it from other people. Here's what we're told: this player looks like, that player looks like. It's different this year. We have so many people. Not only do we get to watch the tape, not only are we watching when we can, we've got the guys working for us doing it, and then we still talk to other teams, which I love. When we get unvarnished reports of, okay, this is what it looked like for from what they saw. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see with Shaq Leonard.
We will.
It didn't look good off of TV, but again, it's hard to tell. The missed tackling, which we'll get into, which everyone could see. This is that's the thing with this team, as we talked about in the post game show. It's not just one area of the football team. It's not good right now.
No, not good. A lot of different breakdowns, a lot of things not going the way they're expected to go. So let's move into our final thoughts here on the Eagles offense. And I'm going to fold a forward thought into our recap thought here. The Eagles just went and made a change in defensive play caller because they didn't feel their defense was up to standard. Well, in their last 3 games, offensively, you can't tell me that that's been up to standard. I mean, 17 points against a banged up and not very good overall Seahawks defense, which followed up 13 points and no touchdowns, no offensive touchdowns against Dallas, followed by the debacle that was the 49ers game. This has been a franchise that's shown you they were getting a little itchy. I mean, to make a move that they made at defense already was kind of interesting there. We talked about that. So you wonder offensively, are they getting just as itchy? This is Nick Sirianni's side of the ball. He is an offensive guy. So if he doesn't make any moves, I think that's a little bit interesting. I mean, I'm not saying they have to. I'm just saying, look, you made a move because you weren't happy with your defense. You made a very unconventional move. Your offense has not played very well in the last 3 weeks and has been inconsistent all year long. What is the recourse to that? Fair question, right?
Yeah, and by the way, they have 1 passing touchdown. The last passing touchdown they had was in garbage time against the Niners. It was total garbage time. It was with like 6 minutes left, or under 6 minutes left, when they're getting blown out. So this is not good. This is not what anyone was expecting. The thing with this offense is we have to remember it's the scheme that they brought in. Sirianni melded a bunch. Todd Haley's, Frank Reich from the Chargers, and obviously it's not going well.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that in a couple of minutes, just further thoughts. And I had some great talks with some personnel people around the league. One guy gave me a great, first time I've ever, not that I haven't heard this before, but the way he explained it was beautiful. So it made me think a little bit more, and we'll get into that. So yeah, they've got problems. I mean, it's not going to be, by the way, you can't change your offensive scheme in one season. Can't do it. You have to do it in the off season. They're going to have to go through the playbook and go back to what works. And Sirianni's got to take responsibility for this. This is on him. I mean, you want to fire, or people want Brian Johnson fired. It's not his scheme. He's the play caller, but he's not the play designer. He helps with it in the offseason, but this is Nick's offense. So Nick's not firing himself, and he's not getting fired. So they're going to have to figure this out together.
100%. And there's a lot of chefs there with Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson and Kevin Patullo and Jeff Stoutland. They got to figure this thing out. They all got to come together. If egos are things, you got to put those aside, and you got to say, we got to do what's best for this offense. So let's talk a little bit about the offense against Seattle, both philosophically, but I also want to hone in on maybe 1 or 2 plays and say, what happened there? But philosophically, they clearly thought they were going to be able to come out and make plays vertically, because as you mentioned with Calcaterra not only playing special teams, they were an 11 personnel offense in this game. And pretty much, do you have the snap count on you? I wanted to see if any other tight end, did any other tight end play more than 10% of the offense?
Stoll did. He played 32%. But
okay, you know what? You're right. I noticed that, but
they were heavy.
They were right. Stoll is in sort of when they want to run as the blocking tight end. He's not in at the same time with guys. I think they're still taking it easy at him on Goddard's arm. And when they want to run and they're not afraid to like telegraph it first down. Stoll was in. I did notice that a lot.
Well, Goddard played a ton. He played 84% of the snaps. But on your point, maybe some of those were he didn't have to block, or he did what's called an easy release, where you you push the guy and then you go off for a route. But Quez Watkins, I know fans have had enough. 52% of the snaps. We laughed at the time, and I guess we were right when Sirianni said he could be the best number two or one of the best number twos. This was like 2 years ago. We laughed at it. People thought we were being disrespectful. We weren't. We were just thought it was preposterous.
Yeah.
And we were right. The guy's not a very good football player. It's just because you can run doesn't make you a good football player. I've had enough. I've been hurt enough with Watkins. He would flash in times, but he's not a consistent enough football player to be out there. And the other problem is they don't use Zaccheaus at all. They don't. Zach Pascal, one thing we should mention, we don't mention it enough. Shame on us. What this guy gave to them in the run game. Mm-hmm. And someone told me he's very smart. He could pick off that safety that blitzed. Super scanner, tough guy, enforcer type. Why do you think Gannon brought him into Arizona? Think about that.
You need guys like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. He's a tangible guy, 100%. So that him not being there certainly hurts their run game. Watkins, he did show promise a couple years ago where you go, okay, maybe this guy could be a good 4, but could make explosive plays for you. But I know he was held on the interception, but you got to fight for that stuff. This has been an ongoing problem for him, not fighting through and getting that football. Right. This is just a problem that's not going away.
And since we're talking about that, let's kind of sort of hone in on that the idea of going deep there. I think they were up 17-3 at the time, were they not? Or 17-10. They were up 17-10. I know some can argue you go for the kill shot there, but they've got the ball. They were driving. That was actually a good drive for them until that interception. I don't know if I really want to go deep there to that guy at that time when I'm moving the ball methodically and I got a chance to put points on the board in a more conventional way. You're also still you're on the road. Like you'd like to be able to move the chains, take time off the clock in a game you're winning and score. I'm not saying completely lose aggressive or take the sail out or the air out of the ball, but man, throwing a Quez Watkins in that moment when it's not worked for you in the past, I think was a questionable decision.
And I'm usually one who sides by coaches when you put guys, lesser players out there. They're with them every day.
Right.
They know these players better than we do, but I think we all know Quez Watkins should not be out there. It's just, you got to be able to trust. See, coaches will tell you, we got to be able to trust this guy. They may say it and they want to back him, but we see the results. The results are unacceptable. And this is something they're going to have to look at. And by the way, he's on the final of his rookie deal. So obviously they have to look elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And I thought Zaccheaus would be a player here. I'm surprised his lack of usage. It's weird because they're playing 11, and I know people say, and there's really no way to know. You just look at the results, though. Hurts, he locks in with 3 pass targets. I know you have to, when you play 11, you have to have someone go out there. Zaccheaus is not a bad player. I just don't understand why they don't get him the football. And there's no way to know, is Hurts freezing him out? Is he just not, were the times he's been open, he's not getting it? We'll look into it, but it's just disappointing because the guy's not a bad football player.
Yeah, I may just simply go back to, again, they were a heavy 11 personnel, and they probably wanted to be vertical against this secondary without 2 starters, 3 technically if you count Adams, and they felt maybe Quez Watkins was going to give them more of that vertical element than Zaccheaus. Zaccheaus has made some plays downfield this year, but they've not been sort of, that's your route run, like that, or there was the scramble drill touchdown, there was the 3rd and 12 kind of comebacker. It seems to me that they were trying to probably get a designed deep shot or 2 or 3 and felt that Quez's speed would give them that opportunity. It just didn't materialize. So the passing game, as we move on and talk about the offense, Adam, we talked about this so much last year and early this year, the sequencing, calling plays now to set up plays later, marrying your run game with your pass game. And lately, it just feels like there's run game and there's deep shots. There's no intermediate game. The RPOs aren't being designed to then keep the defense on. If they're even using RPO, they do use RPOs. It just doesn't feel like they come out with it. I always feel like they're in the best. When those first 15 plays, they're in 11, they're in 12, they're in 11. They're showing the defense a couple of different looks, right? And Greg hit this on the head. I mean, I really think at some point they got to look and say, why don't we just go under center a couple of times, run the ball from there, and then maybe work a little play action off that, and just sort of try to do a better job of marrying run to intermediate to deep. And maybe they are, and it's not working, but it doesn't to the naked eye, it doesn't look that way.
Yeah, and off of that, I love this term. This is playing into what you're talking about. So this personnel guy gave me a great line. He goes, "When I watch Philly, there are no manufactured plays or points. They don't manufacture plays like Kyle Shanahan does. I know it's different scheme, but all coaches, their job is to play callers and play designers. Their job is to manufacture plays. And this is something we've talked about all season. It's regressed so significantly. They don't do wheels. They're not getting Swift involved in the pass game.
Yep.
I'm sorry, one catch for 2 yards doesn't work for me.
Nope.
The lack of the backs usage in the pass game has just been preposterously bad. Though it was crazy deep in training camp. It was like every day you go to practice, we were like, wow, this is crazy. Early in the season, they were getting involved a lot, way up per game, and then, but still not much downfield. Then it's just completely died.
Yeah.
So why is that? Is Hurts like kind of like Wentz? He's just not going to check it down, or they're not designing it. We need to look into that. But the way you score in this league is you manufacture pre-snap, also shifting motions. We talked about this with Flip on our Patreon show last week. He explained why you do it. I understand not every quarterback wants it. Peyton Manning didn't want it. He wanted Marvin Harrison on one side and Reggie Wayne on the other. That's fine, but this is not what we're talking about here.
Right.
This is an offense that's struggling, and you're trying to get it going. What are you doing? You just talked about it. Okay, they ran 38 times, took deep shots, a couple crossers to Brown, a bubble screen that didn't work, then a couple short shots to Goddard. Goddard got targeted 9 times, only had 4 catches. I know some of them were inaccurate throws by Hurts. It's totally disjointed, this offense, totally.
So it's funny. I was having a conversation with a person from the league from a defensive background and echoed very similarly the sentiment that you just did in talking with the person you spoke to, Adam. I don't think anybody expects the Eagles to turn into Kyle Shanahan overnight and just start moving players all around. But when you're struggling, you need to find something different. And I think that all you have to do is look at what Seattle did in the game against the Eagles. They're a 11 personnel team this year, as we outlined last week. And as we talked about in the pregame show, they have 3, they drafted Jackson Smith and Jigba. So they're in a lot more of a passing 11 personnel team than they've been in the past. Right. But that didn't stop them from throwing 2 and 3 tight ends on the field in their run game and coming up with some really interesting motions and shifts and using those tight ends, sift blocks and things to be able to help Walker and Charbonnet get warmed up in the run game. In fact, I almost think they ran it a little bit too much and probably could have had some opportunities to take some deeper shots against Ringo, who's, out there for just the second time in his life. He only was targeted twice, but nonetheless, they did something creative. They realized that they needed to. I'm sure they looked at the Eagles defense, despite the struggles lately. They looked at their offensive line versus the Eagles defensive line and said, we can't just line it up and run our plays. We've got to be able to make sure that we keep them a little bit off balance. And they did a good job of that. There was creative scheming in how they used all 3 of their tight ends. It wasn't just Will Dissly. It was the other 2 guys who you barely ever hear of. They're not household names. They used them all.
Yeah, Parkinson and, played 1 snap on offense, Brady Russell. So they actually played 4.
How about that? 4 tight ends. So what the person was talking to me is, and I think this is so true. We used to, you and I used to talk about this with the Steelers when under Matt Canada. Right now, the Eagles are just running their offense, and when they're winning, it's because they've got AJ Brown, or they have Devontae Smith, or they have Dallas Goedert. They're winning isolation routes because they have blue chip talent at those playmaking positions. But defenses are starting to catch on to what they do out of their formations. I know everyone's making a big deal about Christian McCaffrey on the Manning cast, just calling out the Jalen Hurts. That's a real thing. Like, he's an offensive player and he knows what they're going to do. So again, I don't think that Sirianni and the offensive staff has to become the Shanahan tree overnight, but they've got to start scheming to get guys open. And listen, every time they run a rub route, they get offensive pass interference. They got to clean that part up. That's on Sirianni. But crossing routes, something like you said, motions, adjustments, do something that the defense isn't expecting you to do. Even though I know you can come to the podium and say that stuff worked last year, it worked this year, we're not really running different. It doesn't matter. Your tape has developed. people, especially good teams, well-coached teams, know what you're doing. Just winning on talent isn't always going to be good enough. You got to start to mix it up.
Yeah, that's it, man. I mean, they got to look at themselves. We've been very supportive of Sirianni, but this is on him. I don't know Brian Johnson. We know he called plays at 3 different places in college, but this isn't college football. You got to be more creative with personnel usage. The Eagles personnel is really good on offense. Like there's
Yes.
no like defense. You get like they're down 6 guys. You get that. Why they're struggling for in a variety of reasons why, but big is because of personnel. Were they really down? Miles Sanders is benched in Carolina. Okay,
Right.
they don't use Swift correctly in the pass game. They don't use him the right way. I'm sure when they made the trade, I'm sure the front office thought, okay, well, we're going to get a dynamic running back. He sure looked great earlier this season. Swift did run well in this game, but they're not taking full use of him. And when you really look at the personnel here with Goddard and AJ Brown, and the line is still very good. It may not be elite anymore, but it's still damn good. What excuses do they have other than Hurts is struggling? Okay, well, help them out.
Yeah. Now I'm finally at the point where I'm ready to admit that I think they should either do one of two things. They should either dress Rashad Penny and play him in fourth quarter of a game in which they're winning, because it's tough watching Gainwell and Swift when they're only up by 3 or only up by 7 in the fourth quarter. These guys are still trying to, and I think Swift is starting to just kind of get hesitant at the hole a little bit. He still has some nice runs. He did fine. I just think that you need that guy who's going downhill. They don't have that right now. And either get Rashad Penny that opportunity or cut him and find somebody who will, because they're all out there. How about Trey Sermon having 88 yards on 17 carries for the Colts the other day, right? Okay, get somebody who can go downhill. They need the guy they used to have when they had who was their guy with the neck stingers, but he was their savior in the fourth.
Jordan Howard.
Jordan Howard. Thank you. They need that. I didn't think so at first. I'm starting to think they need it.
And you saw what Blunt did in 2017. My goodness gracious.
Yeah.
He was the perfect guy. That's not the guy doesn't need to have 20 carries.
Nope.
Most backs don't get that anyway anymore, but it's another thing they miss, and Penny was going to be that guy, and the coaches clearly don't want to play him. That's why he's not active. I mean, you saw the cameo, the odd. What was the game we started the second half? Then they pulled him. What was that game? Was it Monday night or
Minnesota?
Night?
It was Minnesota because he had to come out with the cleat. I guess DeAndre Swift came out for like 3 or 4 plays. They gave Penny 2 carries, got like 5 yards, and then DeAndre Swift came right back in.
Was that the last time he played?
No, he had to play one other time. Remember when Boston Scott missed a game because of a personal reason? I think it was in the last 3. I think they brushed the cobwebs off of him and gave him like 2 carries, because he's not active. So they figured, we might as well just throw him into a game.
It's too bad. It's too bad. And people have asked us, we continue to say the same thing. He didn't have a good training camp.
Right.
You earn by performing. He didn't perform. Okay. As you said, why is he on the football team? He's an insurance policy. Here's the other problem: Boston Scott rarely gets touches anymore. I mean, I know it's always been random anyway. But he's a nice paid back.
I know, and he does have. You're making a good point. He does have some power to his game. I mean, he's a big guy. He's just short, but he's compactly built. You can get him 6-7 runs in the fourth quarter if he can handle. I mean, you barely use him in any other role, so you might as well. I don't know.
He's converted pretty well, by the way, in goal line situations over his career. I don't understand quite what the problem is, but anyway, it's they should have blown Seattle out with we'll talk about Drew Lock when we get the Eagles defense, but in a game like this, you mentioned the corners that were out. Think about it. Artie Burns was basically, when they started the season, their 5th corner. Okay, barely, but he was not even a factor. Then they had some injuries, so he's playing. Michael Jackson is a guy that was starting a couple years ago, and again was like the 4th quarter. Now he had to start, and they couldn't beat these guys. Trey Brown's been their 3rd corner. He when Witherspoon would when they go to nickel, Witherspoon would go from the outside to the inside, and Trey Brown would come in. But when your 2 starting outside corners are out, I have no problem with you passing. And it's funny that they came out running, which is typically not what they do.
Right.
But when they passed, and we'll learn more about Hurts' performance. We all know it wasn't very good. But is it the rock combinations because they helped him? Because they've done a better job getting out of his hands quickly, which we've talked about a lot ad nauseum, getting it out of his hands to to a pass target, get him comfortable and accurate. We know he was ill, but this has been an ongoing problem with Hurts. Everybody knows that he's been wildly inconsistent to the point you don't really know what you're getting out of him.
I think that's fair. You really don't know, and it's some of that is a function of the offense. And I agree with you. If he's sick and you're worried a little bit about how much he's going to hold up, that's more reason to kind of draw up some just get the ball out of his hands, like you're saying. Get him in a rhythm, get him in a flow. Let the adrenaline take over for being sick. But if you're sick and you're struggling to pass the ball and you have to run and you're taking hits, that's not a good recipe either. All right, a couple more things on Jalen Hurts before we get to defense. Before we even get to that, though, Santa Baby, the season for a fresh cut is finally here with the sponsors of today's show, Manscaped. The leaders in below-the-waist grooming have just launched their 5th-generation lawnmower to help you avoid another silent night in the bedroom. Take care of your special snowflake and watch your South Pole shine like never before. Get the best stocking stuffer of all by going to manscaped.com and use the promo code ITB20 for 24% off and free shipping. Mrs. Claus will thank you. Everybody knows the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra is the crown jewel of the holidays. Its skin-safe technology is a lifesaver, and it's known for reducing the nicks and cuts on the old Santa sack. And don't forget the Manscaped Beard Hedger Pro Kit and Handyman Electric Face Shaver to cover all your facial hair needs. And get rid of those nasty icicles on your nose and your ears with the Weed Whacker 2.0 Nose and Ear Hair Trimmer. Also, take care of your chestnuts with Manscaped's Boxers 2.0. There's even the Shears 3.0 Nail Grooming Kit. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code ITB20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com and use the promo code ITB20. Say ho, ho, ho to a well-groomed mistletoe with Manscaped. All right, I don't want to bury Jalen Hurts too much because I understand he was sick. I understand the play calling wasn't great. There's a whole lot going on. It's raining. But we keep seeing, Adam, this, especially in fourth quarters. We saw this in the Jets game. This decision-making really hurting him and them at times. Not only with the ball to Quez Watkins, maybe that probably shouldn't have been, but even after the Seahawks go ahead, he gets a 20-yard run, right? They're approaching midfield. They have 2 timeouts. You have one of the best kickers, if not the best kicker in the league. I think they only needed to get, 15 yards to start into Jake Elliott? So to force a ball like that all the way down the field to A.J. Brown, where everybody knew the ball was going to go, was a bad decision that was sort of reminiscent of trying to do too much in the fourth quarter against the Jets. I mean, but this one, you just need a field goal. You get life. You just need maybe 15, 18 yards. That was a bad decision.
Yeah, and they actually had 2 timeouts left.
Yeah.
I thought for sure throw it in the middle of the field, as you said. That's what I was thinking at the time. I remember exactly. It's okay. They have 2 timeouts left. Get the ball down 15 to 20 yards. Keep getting chunk yards. They've got 2 timeouts. It's okay. I mean, there's not a lot of time left, but they had 28 seconds when they got the football. I get it. That's not a lot of time. So to me, they sort of panicked. Okay, let's go for a shot play.
Yep.
It's just, I don't know. Now I know it was a missed. What I understand just about the entire game. It was not raining hard, but it was just an annoying Seattle mist.
Mm-hmm.
But we've seen Elliott. Was Elliott 61-yarder in the rain? Am I wrong about that? The last 61-yarder,
yes,
which was this season.
Yes,
right. So what? I don't know. I thought that was very strange. By the way, Hurts looked great running the football. That's the one positive. Boy, he looked.
It did
really good. That was good to see.
Yeah, I mean, and theoretically, you could have spread it out and called another run, Hurts run up the middle. That probably would have taken 6 or 7, but you might get 8 to 12 on that carry. I mean, he's been good with that. So you get that, then your next pass all has to be it gives you so much optionality with 2 timeouts to be able to set up what you need. That I was just, that seemed like almost like a we got no shot type throw. Like let me just see what I can do.
Yes, that's what it's funny. That was my response. I'm like, what do they think that the game was like? It's it. This is a Hail Mary. I just thought was odd, but it never should. Guys, let's call it.
I know it's going to come down. I know.
Embarrassing. Just embarrassing. Drew Lock. Oh no, it happened.
It did. All right, we'll talk about this defense now. Adam, I know some people are probably gonna. I hope not, but I imagine some people are gonna listen to the show, and if they haven't done it, they're gonna be. You guys are all over Matt, but all they did was allow 20 points. All right, don't give me 20 points. I know 20 points looks good on paper, and that your offense should have scored more than 20, but the Seahawks with their backup quarterback still averaged 6.2 yards per play, higher than the Eagles' average per play, and they converted 4 3rd and 10s. Four 3rd and 10s, 2 on the final drive. You made a defensive play caller switch for that? Like, come on.
I mean, the lack of pressure. Drew Lock, dude, you run better than Drew Lock. He can't move.
No, he can't.
Totally immobile. His mechanics are poor. He's always had that strong arm. That got him drafted out of Missouri in the second round. I actually saw a lot of him in college a little bit with the Broncos, and he just doesn't throw the ball great because his footwork's not great. You saw some balls come out weird.
So,
but yet
weird delivery, man.
He does. But yet, final drive, 92 yards. It's just,
how about that?
And the lack of, it's like they played a coverage-based defense, okay, for most of the game. Barely blitzed. It's Drew Lock. He can't move. Why would you not get? I don't want to hear, oh, you can't do this new play caller. BS.
Yeah.
Yes, we had a very strong source. You and I know. It gave us a great breakdown of what a new play caller can do in season. You can't have a new scheme. You can't do that.
Right.
You look at your blitz pressures and pick the best ones. Guys, you're not going to pick ones they've never practiced before, but you're going to pick them. You have a menu of them. To not get after Drew Lock is preposterous. That's just totally absurd. I don't understand.
Yeah, it made no sense to me. It didn't make sense to play man defense with one high safety on the final on the touchdown pass to JSN and not blitz. If you're going to play a man defense, at least speed up his clock. It's 3rd and 10. Make him throw the ball really quickly short of the sticks. Or I spoke to someone, again, a guy with a defensive background. He said, if you want to play man, fine, play 2-man, which is 2 deep man underneath, because even if he completes a pass, you have a chance to tackle him short of the sticks. You're making him go underneath your 2-shell coverage. So you can play your safeties at the sticks and keep your coverage in between that. And it's going to be hard to beat it up top if your front four does the job, or even just a little bit. I mean, you watch that play and he knows Drew Lock, as soon as he sees one-on-one on the outside, he knows where he's going. And lost in the whole conversation that we had yesterday about that coverage, that decision, and the Seahawks scoring there, going 92 yards, is that they went 92 yards, Adam, without calling a timeout in the final. They just moved the ball at will.
It's embarrassing.
I will give credit. I mean, DK Metcalf made an incredible play, but the point is, they didn't have to take it. They didn't even felt rushed on this final drive where they're behind and needed it to win. I mean, they were.
He was I was shocked. I know he's always had the strong arm, but he's been so inaccurate in his career.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he found accuracy and when they absolutely had to do it. I mean, give him credit, but wow. And James Bradbury, I know people have asked us, what do you do? He's got to play by his contract. He's making so much money. He's got to play. But here's the question on that. Do you start cutting his playing time? Let the kids take some of his spot.
Wow. Well, let's work backwards on this, right? Okay. As we know, and I think even Nick talked about this in his press conference, the decision to go from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia was Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman being in agreement with this. Okay. They were lockstep. They both felt that a change was needed.
Sure.
Do you think that the guy that Howie just signed to a 3-year deal in the offseason for big money is going to be benched? Are they going to be in lockstep?
No, but I'm saying he's struggled so badly.
Uh-huh.
And you saw they split Ringo up with Ricks.
Yeah.
I get why they did that, because Slay was out and that may continue. But when Slay comes back, I guess it would be, you can't do it for the playoffs. You just can't. But if they don't eat Bradbury's contract and he's back next season, which is probably going to be the case that he'll be back because of his contract, they're gonna have to have some tough talks after the season's over, because this has just been good dude. Great story last year, but we've hit the struggle bus. it's I know some people would say, well, they should have played these young kids earlier. Only the coaches know that. We don't know why they didn't play earlier, but they're playing now, and it looked good. For the most part, the craziness of Josh Joe came in for 2 plays, he had a penalty in one of them.
Oh, I know. And what happened to Job that I guess I know what he did in training camp was good. When he got a chance to play with Bradbury getting kicked inside when Maddox got hurt, the one thing that stood out was for a guy who's physical, he wasn't being physical. He was playing too off, things like that. I mean, are we sitting here saying Ricks and Ringo are so much more physical? I feel like Ringo played well. He's a bigger guy. I'm sort of surprised that Seattle only went after him twice. So we need to have to see a bigger sample size on that. And now that other teams know he's going to be out there, starting with the Giants, we'll see if maybe they put Slayton on him if they can and test him a little bit, because it looked good in 2 snaps, but you got to wonder if they're going to try to go after him now that they know he's going to be on the field a little more.
He was actually pretty sticky. That's the coaching term. He did look good. And Ricks has been a really good story.
Yeah.
We'll see down the line in future years whether they can compete for a starting job when Slay and Bradbury are gone. But this is I mean, here's the thing: they play with better discipline. But let's call it like it is. Locke was so inaccurate earlier in the game, first half in particular, that you want to give the Eagles defense the secondary credit, but they weren't tested because Locke was so off his game, and they also called a very conservative game plan with him because he clearly, because Geno Smith they split reps during the week, so they had to get through this, and they're trying to win a game and doing what they can to help them. So we'll learn more, but the other part of this as we move forward here. Also in the secondary, they played big nickel. Sidney Brown, everybody saw missed tackles. That was bad. Cosell told us this. Greg was very critical of Brown's tackling because he was a box player, and he was trying to be Hufanga like the Niners. He wanted to be a blow up the play, and he's great at it. He was great at it at Illinois. Made a lot of big plays. You love the character. He could hit. Good special teams player, but he's got to be better. He's out of position sometimes. And this is a problem. And the tackling overall, that cross country run on for the touchdown by Walker, where he crossed field was, I mean, I know he made guys miss, but did you see those guys dive after the football? What kind of angles are those? I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, there was bad tackling. I mean, listen, we've seen that the last few weeks. It's not so egregious that they're getting killed, but I think that there was probably a miss or two on that 3rd and 1 touchdown that Kenneth Walker scored. And as the defensive source I was speaking to was telling me, the Eagles are having a problem lately setting the edge, which is something that in the past they've done. And one of their best edge setters we know is Brandon Graham, but Brandon Graham doesn't play as much on 1st and 2nd down as he used to. He's now a situational pass rusher. It's hard to take a Reddick off the field. Hard to take Sweat off the field, but Sweat's good against the run too, although I don't think he played it so great in this past game. But they may need to kind of look at getting some more time for Brandon Graham if offenses are now shifting. Dallas did it, Seattle did it, to run the ball on them a little bit more and try to take advantage of the edges and setting it. Then maybe you add a counter with a little bit more Brandon Graham because he's very good at that.
Yeah, BG played only 18 snaps, 30% of the snaps overall.
Yeah.
And look, the other thing is it's a popular narrative, and we'll ask Cosell and Avantis on Monday's show, our pregame show. Are the young guys? Is Jordan Davis wearing down? Is Carter wearing down? It seems like he is, but we'll ask them what they think. So this is long, obviously it's the longest season they've ever had in their entirety here of their young careers here, because they wouldn't have played this much at Georgia. So this is good. This is a challenge for them. Milt Williams, haven't heard his name in a little bit. We'll look into that. What's going on there, and obviously Leonard. But the big thing here is that their defense collapsed when it shouldn't have collapsed. This is a game they absolutely should have handled Seattle. It should not have been close.
Yeah.
And look, the other problem is because the offense only scored against a bad defense or a struggling defense, I should say, 17. That's another problem. Like you mentioned it earlier, the offense has got to help the defense out. That's the craziness is they beat the ball great in the first drive. I think they only had 3 scoring drives, if I'm not mistaken. Well, yeah, 3. Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
It's just it was bad, and it looked like because Locke was struggling so badly in the first half. It looked like the Eagles could roll a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but the other problem was that they were only up by 7 at halftime. Seattle scored that late field goal, and they left plays on the field, and this is what happens. You don't have to see. The thing is, last year the offense could carry the defense and vice versa whenever it was needed. They were so dominant and great. As I said on our post game show to you guys, why I asked you this, tell me the identity. What do the Eagles do well? I think we all agreed. Their special teams are leading the team right now. That's not good.
No, not good. They kick field goals great.
And their coverage is better. Covey's really good. The punter has been good signing, but Braden Mann,
right?
Look, and obviously, and Elliott's great, so that's good. But offensive defense, not so good.
That's right. All right, we'll got one final thought before we get to that, Adam. Everyone's out right now scrambling to get their holiday shopping done. No one's at home planning and making meals. Well, maybe they are for Christmas, but not for that night when you got to eat or whatever holiday, right? That's why we love HelloFresh. They deliver farm fresh food with pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to our doorstep. There's no wasting time at the grocery store because America's #1 meal kit helps make home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. With HelloFresh, the shopping is already done and the perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. And HelloFresh saves you time and money. It's 25% less expensive than takeout, so you get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. Don't forget about taste and selection. All their food is fantastic. Adam's had meals. I've had meals, chicken, steak, vegetarian meals, seafood meals, whatever you want. They've got it. All right. Now you need to, this is a great holiday gift. If you know someone who is just an absolute lousy person in the kitchen, you should say, man, they would love HelloFresh for the holiday. I can send them 5 or 6 meals and they will thank me because whatever it is they're cooking, they're probably going to be really unhappy with it, or it's going to be really greasy or something terrible. All right. So use this for holiday gifts. You go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use that promo code 50Eagles, 50 Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use that promo code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. All right, I'm going to leave you with this as we sort of close down this podcast, Adam. Been doing a lot of, I'm sure you've been sort of thinking about this too. I'm trying to think, like, can the Eagles make can they get themselves right, both offensively and defensively, with some of the things we're discussing, some changes, some wrinkles here and there? And is that enough to make them a legit Super Bowl contender? Or have we finally just peeled back the layer here of the onion to the point where we say, well, if you need to scheme this much on both sides of the ball, then you're probably don't deserve to be in the same breath with Baltimore and San Francisco. I'm wrestling back and forth with this. They have a lot of talent, but they have probably bigger deficiencies that are harder to cover up than maybe San Francisco or Baltimore.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Way more. I mean, again, they have major personnel issues on defense because of injury, and they walked away from some free agents. We've been through this 100 times.
Yep.
Offensively, they've got the talent. That's the thing. They've got the talent. It's just they got to help Hurts out. Hurts has got to do a better job. He's got to take responsibility. Coaches have to help them. They got to take a look at themselves about play design. And I know you can't change your scheme, but they got to look at helping Hurts get him more comfortable. And looking how they design plays and call plays and personnel usage and getting personnel involved in certain situations. Again, we talked about Swift, a lack of understanding of how to get him great again.
Mm-hmm.
When he was great earlier in the season, and they know how talented the guy is. It's kind of weird. I never saw this offense regression like this because the offensive line's good. It's not elite like last year. It's still darn good. I'm a little bit, I don't want to say shocked, but I'm surprised at the offensive regression here.
Yeah, me too. And I will say I have a little bit of concern going forward here on how they're going to react to this adversity. You know, it was, listen, we said we understood to an extent why you would want a different play caller defensively if you still felt like just a little bit of a change, a better view would help your defense. It didn't look like it did much in the first one, but now you have another loss, and we've seen this organization sometimes get a little jittery with adversity. You're already seeing some players going back and forth on Twitter with fans. I think that's a bad sign too. I mean, they really need a win in a bad way to get back on track and prevent sort of any kind of like more bad vibes happening, and then the organization pushing more panic buttons. So we'll have to just see what.
Fair enough. Yeah. There's an AJ Brown situation, what he was saying. I guess, he seemed frustrated. I mean, he was just responding to some stuff that's out there, and that's his deal.
Yeah.
But I thought Jason Avant was phenomenal in our pregame show, talking about leadership and what players have to do, and they have to act a certain way. And I encourage people who missed it. That was just so awesome what Jason had to say. It was in the Monday pregame show, so that was wonderful. Greg and Jason were just incredible. That might have been our best show.
That was a great show.
That was just
a lot of good conversation.
And as we always say, a lot of it, unfortunately, sometimes comes out to happen during the game where they predict it, where they go hear the issues that they see on tape. And Jason from a player, and Greg, Jason as a player and tape watcher and an evaluator, and Greg's an evaluator, putting their heads together. It's pretty cool. Then, just like you say, they're not doing this. This is a problem. But yet, as we move forward to close here, the schedule eases up. They've been waiting for this. They got through the gauntlet. They got through their last long road trip. They've got one road trip left, and it's probably a bus to New Jersey in 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. It's the last game. But bottom line is, it's all there for the taking. They're still very alive for the NFC East. It's still there.
Yeah, the heart is still beating, and let's for heaven's hope. Let's hope the Eagles can get through this 3-game schedule, get back on track, and nobody has to. No fans are really worried about the state of the team, and nothing crazy happens. So we'll see. You're right. That pregame show was great. It was our best show until this Inside the Birds podcast. Thanks for listening to the #1 podcast in Eagles Intel. As always, we thank you for flying with us inside the Birds. Be sure to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation.